Well, good morning. Welcome to CAL FIRE San Diego, Monte Vista Unit Headquarters. I'm Greg Griswold. I'm the Acting Unit Chief here in San Diego. First, I'd like to acknowledge some distinguished guests that are with us today, and I want to thank them for coming out in support of Wildfire Awareness Week. I'd like to thank Sally Jewell, Secretary, Department of Interior, John Leonard, Secretary, California Natural Resource Agency, Ken Pinlot, Director of CAL FIRE, Mark Ghilarati, Governor's Office of Emergency Services, Phil Thompson of Major, California National Guard, Sean Lagarza, Director of Fire and Aviation Management, U.S. Forest Service. Also like to thank Colin Stoll, representing San Diego City Fire Department and Fire Rescue. Also like to thank David Hanneman, he's the president of the San Diego County Fire Chiefs. Sandra Younger, author of the book, The Fire Outside My Window. Albert Vasquez, Assembly Member, Gonzalez's office. Rob Knutson, Assembly Member, Emelishine's office. Chris Panetta, again with Assembly Member, Menishine's office. Caitlin Haley, Senator Block's office. Wayne Brown, Assembly Weber's office. Marie Joyce, Senator Weiland's office. American Red Cross. And last but not least, David Moss, Captain, San Diego County Sheriff's Department. San Diego County has experienced some of the worst fires in California history. The Cedar Fire, which occurred in 2003, and also the Witch and the Harris Fire, which occurred in 2007. San Diego is experiencing one of its driest years on record. Fire activity up and down the state is at record levels, and San Diego is no exception. Here in San Diego, for those that work here and live here, know that fire season is year-round. The display of folks around me shows a united front and a great example of how all of these agencies work together to protect the citizens of San Diego County and also throughout the state. At this time, I'd like to introduce the Secretary of Department of Interior, Sally Jewell.
Thank you very much. Thanks for that introduction, and thank you very much for everything that everybody does behind me and everybody does notably on the edges here in working together to fight fire, both in communities and in our wildlands. You know, fire is something that knows no boundaries. It knows no local boundaries, state boundaries, or national boundaries. And if there's one thing that I've seen in my year and a little bit working for the federal government is that when it comes to fighting fires, people work together. And I want to call out some of my colleagues in the Department of the Interior, our tribal members from the hotshot crew that work through the Bureau of Indian Affairs, Bureau of Land Management, our colleagues at the U.S. Forest Service, work alongside CAL FIRE and local fire departments to make sure that communities are safe and wildfire is addressed. I want to acknowledge John Laird, who has my job here in the state of California as Secretary of Natural Resources. We meet, it seems like regularly, on things like the drought that you're experiencing in California, now wildland fire, and other areas that are of particularly important interest to all of us. We are right now looking at a pretty tough wildfire season. This is a much drier period than we've had. We've had multiple years of severe drought. The drought is extending throughout the state of California. I know that by April, CAL FIRE had already fought 1,244 wildfires. That's triple the average for that period of time. And it's not going to get better over the course of this year, and I think that's something that every citizen of California should know and also should take steps to protect their communities and their homes. We've had higher temperatures. We just released the National Climate Assessment today, and it talks about the regions of the country and the impact that we're seeing from climate change, which is increasing the risk of fires, increasing the risk from drought in many parts of our landscapes, and that is something that these brave men and women around us that fight fires are going to have to face in an increasing way this year. So we need citizens of San Diego to do your part. This morning I had an opportunity to fly over these lands in a helicopter. forest lands, state lands, private lands, and I saw some houses that had done a really great job of making their spaces defensible, and some that had not, that had vegetation right up to the edge of their homes. So we encourage you to be fire-wise in preventing wildfire around your home. A couple of websites, www.firewise.org, and California's www.preventwildfireca.org. These are places you can go to learn about what to do to protect your homes. So climate change, we're all responsible, and it has a price tag. We are seeing this extended drought result in things like invasive species, things like native species that are doing more damage, like the pine bark beetle in parts of our forest. And the Climate Action Plan that was introduced by the President in June calls on all of us to do our part to make our communities more resilient, to prioritize removing extra brush and flammable materials so that we can help prepare our communities for fires. Also prioritize landscapes that are around watersheds that are so important for clean water and clean air. And I learned today on my flight from colleagues at the U.S. Geological Survey about the risk of rains coming after wildland fires and flowing debris down into reservoirs and into communities that increases other risks. So we are working together with a bipartisan group of senators and representatives to do some things in terms of how we budget for wildland fire, to make them the emergencies that they really are. And we appreciate the support of all of you in what you do in this local community, as well as throughout the state of California, in working with your federal partners to do an excellent job of taking care of the increasing risks that we face as a community. So with that, I'm going to turn the podium over to my counterpart here in the state of California. Please welcome Secretary of Natural Resources, John Laird.
Thank you very much. When I embarked on a career in public service almost 40 years ago, it never occurred to me that so much would hinge on good federal and state relations. And more often than not, the federal government and the state government don't get along. That is so not true right now. We are working arm in arm to address many issues, whether it's the Delta, desert renewable energy, Lake Tahoe, the Klamath Basin, water in general in California, and I am very pleased with our good partnership with Secretary Jewell and the administration. We are now in the 3 driest years in recorded history in California. The Sierra Snowpack, which is California's water bank, 25 million Californians get their water from there. The latest measurement, the last one of the season last week, showed it is at 18% of normal. That we had an unusually warm April and snow melted at even a faster level, what little there was. We set a record this year in Northern California. In Sacramento, we went 52 consecutive days without rain in the rainiest time of year, breaking the previous record, which was in 1884. For the first time in history, the 54-year history of the California Water Project, we announced initially there would be a 0 allocation. We are up to 5% now. We traditionally collect 5 million acre-feet of water to deliver every year. We are in the low 100,000s in this year. But is probably most significant, in January of 2013, we had no significant fire in California that CAL FIRE responded to. In January of 2014, there were 437 fires. There were 2 in Humboldt County that were significant and in which it is arguably one of the wettest places in California in the winter. This is an unprecedented season. When the governor issued his state of emergency on the drought at the end of January, he staffed up CAL FIRE so that across the state it was to be staffed up in a significant way by April 1st, 2 months ahead of our normal schedule. 95% of the fires in California are human caused. So our message today is we are heading into a season that could be unprecedented for fires in California. And it is really incumbent on every individual to make sure they're not using equipment outside for most of the day that do sparks, that they don't do campfires, that they do everything they can to not inadvertently start a major fire. But at the other end, there's defensible space. There are things that best protect them in case a fire does head their way. And we are very lucky. We have the people that are standing here in tribal service or state service or local service or federal service that are going to be the front lines this year. But we have to make sure they are not tested excessively. And so it is up to everyone. As the governor said, as only the governor could say yesterday at our fire awareness press conference, don't do something stupid. And so that's our message today. Be careful and be prepared because we could be heading into one of the worst seasons in history. And to add to this is the chief of CAL FIRE, Ken Pimlott. Chief.
Well, good morning, and thank you, everyone, for being here. And it's really hard to add to what both Secretary Jewell and Secretary Laird have said, but several things are important to really emphasize. One is we have been leaning forward all year to prepare for fire season. In fact, here in Southern California, we have not left fire season since April of 2013. It has been continuous here in the Southland. And as indicated by Secretary Jewell, we are well above average for this time of year for the number of fires that we have had already. And we're seeing unprecedented conditions and fire activity across California, which for us is really the indicator that we're in a year, in a season that is not necessarily the norm from the past, but may be becoming the norm of the future as we continue to see, changing California landscape. Also pointed out the importance of state-federal partnership, and as Secretary Laird said, I would also add to that the local government, the tribal, our other cooperating agencies with law enforcement, Red Cross. California is well practiced at working together in these disasters, and we do it well. And the reason we do it well is because we all work together, regardless of the patch on our shoulder, because none of us can do it alone. The challenge of dealing with disasters and moving across California is bigger than any one of us singly. And because of the individuals and the departments and agencies and organizations they represent behind me, we get it done. So, and again, because the governor leaned forward, as Secretary Laird said, and provided resources to CAL FIRE early this year so that we could be prepared. What we're asking again, and to reiterate, we are asking for the public to step forward and be prepared as well. You're going to hear this number a lot. 95% of all fires are started by people. And that means that 95% of all fires can be prevented. It's through education, it's through awareness, and it's through every homeowner, every property owner doing their part to take care of their own business, defensible space, clearing that property around your home so that it can be safely defended during a wildland fire. Very clear, you've heard several websites already today. I will steer you towards Ready for Wildfire. Go to that website. It talks to you about how to prepare and plan for any disaster, but in particular wildfire. And there you can see that the three simple words, ready, set, go. And with that, it's just that simple. Ready means do the things you need to do ahead of the fire. Prepare an evacuation plan. Identify all those things that you're going to take with you before the fire occurs. Do your defensible space. And then set. Set means have everything in place, be ready to move at a moment's notice should a fire occur. And then lastly, it's go. And that means just that. Evacuate and evacuate early. Heed the information you're receiving on the news media. Heed the information of local law enforcement and fire officials. Don't wait until it's too late. It's important to get out so that the firefighters and law enforcement officers can come in and safely protect your property. This is an opportunity this week where many of us are going statewide during Wildfire Awareness Week to get the message out. It's our opportunity to really get the message home, but we recognize it's already started this year. And so this is just a time today to pause, think about where we live, particularly here in San Diego County, with the historic fires that we've already talked about, and that we know, again, fire-prone county, fire-prone state, that we know those fires are to come as well. So again, thank you for being here today. And next up, I'd like to turn the podium over to the Director of California's Office of Emergency Services, Mark Gellarducci.
Well, good morning. And let me start off by saying that really our thoughts and prayers go out to those citizens in California who have already faced adversity and been victims of this very early fire season. We've had a lot of fires in the state, much more than we have had in the past. And you know, California has a lot of risks, a lot of threats. Clearly at the top of that list of threats is wildfire. And there's no real one place within California that is not at risk of wildfire. And we have a very, very robust mutual aid, interagency coordination system that we manage that is really represented here, as you see, all these interagency cooperating agencies, whether it be local, state, or federal, tribal, even private sector, coming together to respond to the event of wildfire. But this is not just a government solution. It's a public, private, individual effort. All of you need to be prepared for this threat. All of you need to have a family plan, have a capability to have a communications with your family, know what to do when wildfire breaks out. Many people think it's not going to happen in my neighborhood, it's not going to happen in my home, but these things do happen, and we see them all the time throughout the state. So we really encourage you to understand, listen to what's happening around you, be aware, listen to your firefighters, law enforcement community when they're giving you evacuation orders, and be prepared for this particular threat. We know as the drought continues, you've heard both secretaries mention and Chief Pemlott, this is an unprecedented drought situation. Third year of dry conditions. We do have fuel moistures that are very, very low. The conditions are literally a perfect storm for wildland fire eruption. And so we want to make sure that we respond very rapidly and keep fires small. But the most important thing is starts with you. If the fires don't occur at all, as Chief Pemlott said, 95% of those fires are started by humans. If they don't start at all, we're that much further ahead. So with that, I just want to say, be prepared. This is a partnership with all of us, and you know, we're going to be there when we're needed, but we're also looking for you to do your part. With that, I want to turn it over to Captain Dave Moss from the San Diego County Sheriff's Department to make a few comments. Thank you.
I work for the San Diego Sheriff's Department, and I'm assigned to the Astria unit. Astria, at least in San Diego County, many are familiar with. It's the helicopter wing on the department. And many might not know that Astria is actually, in Greek mythology, means aerial support to regional enforcement agencies. Reality is, it means justice, cooperation, and honesty. And how appropriate. In the last several years, we have had a long-standing working relationship with CAL FIRE in aerial firefighting and rescues for all 4,200 square miles of San Diego County. And some of the recurring theme here has been partnership. And I have been very impressed with the partnership, being new to the division, that we have with CAL FIRE. It's also important to recognize that we have, in partnership with CAL FIRE, 2 helicopters that are solely responsible for rescues and firefighting. And they can drop up to 275 gallons of water at one time. But we also have a fleet of law enforcement helicopters, as many are aware here in San Diego County. But it's important to remember that that can also be used for firefighting, whether it be reconnaissance, rescues, or even water drops with attachable buckets. I also want to mirror some of the other comments that were made about preparation. There's been several changes since the 2003 and 2007 fires. One is Alert San Diego. Alert San Diego is a system formerly referred to as Reverse 911, where all of the landlines in San Diego County are in a database. And if something affects your house, your phone will ring. Now, I know times are changing, and many of us have cell phones, emails, and other variations through the computer for our phones. So I want to ask everyone to encourage you to go on to www.readysandiego.org and register your cell phones and your email addresses. That way, if something happens near your home, you will be notified. And I'd like to thank you all for being here and introduce Chief Lagarza.
Thank you, Captain, and thanks everybody for being here today. This is an amazing crowd for Wildfire Awareness Week. Thanks to CAL FIRE for inviting all of us in, the different agencies, to come here and be together. I think it's one of the first years we've done that as a group of directors and chiefs coming down here to traveling through the state as all of us interagency doing that. I think it shows to the public and to all the agencies in California that we're doing the best we can to be prepared for the wildland fire season. We all know we're in a 3-year drought. We all know that fire season hasn't ended since April of 2013 last year. We were on fires in Southern California then, when the Colby fire and the Powerhouse fire. We had fires of Spring Fire, fires on the San Bernardino. So we've been busy responding together throughout the fall and even the winter. And so some of the things I think about when I think about the busyness that I see the hotshots have had, or the engines and the hell attack, or just our division chiefs, is making sure you're just taking some time out for yourself, you know. You got to practice some good self-leadership, make sure you have some good work-rest balance for how busy we've been throughout this entire winter, fall month. We haven't had a break. We've been fully staffed with the U.S. Forest Service, and we've been beefing up staffing and lowering staffing levels when we need to for all the different red flags that we've had. So with the busyness, all of us, make sure you get some time for some rest on that. The second thing is the homeowners. We talk a lot about being leaders in the agency and leaders in the public. All of us are leaders. So there's been a number of websites that have been provided for people to go to. Go look at those websites, gather information, and be as prepared as you can as a homeowner. So it takes all of us to prevent wildland fires and to put them out. Not just the federal government, the state, the city, local, county volunteers, but all the homeowners and the people in your community. You know, I've been a firefighter, and I've been evacuated from my house at the same time while I'm on a fire. So have a plan. Have your bags ready to go. Know your medicine. Have your medication ready. Know where you're going to put your animals, and be as prepared as you can, because it could be a very busy season. The last thing I'd like to talk about with all the different great cooperation with all the agencies we have is just a really good alignment of communication. And that takes everybody in the public and the media and all the folks, the chief officers and directors, so we have the same message that's coming across when we move into the fire season, so that the public is being well informed, and we too as the fire agencies are well informed. So thank you for being here today, and please have a great, safe summer. And back to Chief Griswold.
Okay, I'd like to take this time if anybody here has any questions.